I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Leah Hunter. I'm the library manager here at the Delia Library, and I'm here to talk to you about 3D printing today. So we decided to take on 3D printing in our Delia makerspace, and starting in about 2014 was when our journey began. And the spark sort of began because I had attended the Southern Alberta Library Conference and was able to go to various sessions on makerspaces, and actually got to go to a maker fair and watch a 3D printer work, and was amazed at what could be created. We also found that some of the use of our library had dropped during that year, and so we were thinking of ways, the board and I, of ways that we could start to get our community re-engaged in our library. And so this was an interesting process, I guess, because it was one of the things that I had presented to them. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, it's just fine. And pinch your crease.
Okay, great. So in March, I met Carson Daly from the Olds Public Library, and they had a makerspace and had just started into 3D printing also. They had a MakerBot 3D printer, and I actually didn't go to a 3D printing workshop. It was a Minecraft one, but it was a great place to network and meet with people. And Carson also let me know that the Didsbury Library had a makerspace and had 3D printing, and I got a hold of their library manager, Inez, and so she had a Machina X like the one we purchased. So it was exciting because I got to actually go to both those libraries and those makerspaces and have a look at their 3D printing. So in October of 2014, we decided we needed to talk to our community to find out if they were interested in a makerspace in our library and in 3D printing. So we went to our local fall fair and did surveys there. We also had several focus groups that we did surveys with to try to get as many people as we could. So in November, the board and I compiled the data, and we put together a makerspace committee, and we also decided to let people understand what a makerspace would include. So we went out into our community and did group presentations about it to try to also get their feedback. And then in February, we toured, like I talked about, the library makerspaces and looked at 3D printing and talked to those libraries about, and their staff about, what were some of the challenges of 3D printing, what were some of the things they found worked best for them. It was a great way to get an eye-opener. So our project plan going forward started in March of 2015, and we decided to purchase a 3D printer and came up with a budget, and of course we didn't have enough money to right away purchase the 3D printer. So we put together a presentation and a budget and took it to our local Elks group. And in June of 2015, we received a grant approval from our Elks, and they were instrumental in helping us purchase our 3D printer. But that, for me, was when the real fun began, because that's when I had to start researching 3D printers in earnest and talking to people about, you know, what was the best printer, what was most reliable. And of the companies I talked to, which I spoke to many, I felt that the Machina had all the features we wanted, I guess. And what I liked about it was that they came and delivered it, set it all up, calibrated it, trained staff on it, and then also offered care and maintenance packages for a year. and included 10 spools of the plastic PVA filament. So it was a pretty big ticket item, and I'm sure we could have got a cheaper 3D printer, but not with all those things. So to me, those were important because I had no idea how to run this. I mean, basically just understood the basics of 3D printing. So it was worthwhile to have them come set it up, install everything, and do the training. Any questions about anything so far? Okay. I also did some research throughout the U.S. also, talking to libraries that had maker spaces there. And one of the things that they said that you really had to be careful with was making sure you had reliable equipment, because if your stuff was breaking down all the time, people just sort of stopped coming because they found it too hard to use. And so that, again, for me, was why I thought the Machina was the best printer for us, because it was quite sturdy, very trouble-free, and because we had that maintenance and care and training available. I have to say Machina has been very good too. If we've had any problems, they've worked with us very well. So we did receive our 3D printer in March of 2016, which was very exciting, but also very nerve-wracking at the same time. I won't lie. I wasn't sure exactly how or where I was going to go about with this. So there was all those questions. So where do we house it? What do we charge? Our maker space in our library is technically upstairs, but we are finding that the maker space sort of is everywhere in our library. And so when we looked at how to best situate the 3D printer, we felt that having it close to the entrance and right by the circulation desk was the best place. It provided the best supervision, and having staff near to help people, we felt was a valuable decision. We have found our printer is not very noisy. It really has no smell. And we haven't found that we've used a ton of wasted plastic. There's been a bit, but very little. So I think part of that is that we encourage good 3D design. So you don't want a 3D design with lots and tons of supports. So we try to build 3D designs or help people with 3D designs that have minimal supports, so that we're not wasting that plastic. We use the PLA filament, which is a bioplastic, and it is compostable at an industrial recycler, but you can also use PVA filament, which will dissolve in water and is biodegradable. Just at this time, we didn't felt that for the extra price it was worth it. There is a wood fiber filament that's mixed with the PLA that you can also purchase. We've not looked at any kinds of metal filament. Our machine doesn't handle that. And our machine actually is only a one spool machine, so it only holds one color of spool at a time, whereas some other printers, you can have more than one color. I also felt that when we were doing the training, it was valuable to have more than myself here. I do have just some part-time staff, but I decided that I would get a group of students from our school to come in and participate in the training from Machina with me, because it's hard when it's just one person trying to absorb it all. And when there was 4 of us, what one of us didn't pick up, the other did, which I felt was invaluable in future days, because when I was feeling like there was something I didn't remember or didn't write enough notes on, a lot of the students had done that. And I also felt that the students were great advocates to their peers and have been participating with me in doing training for students and community members in our community. So that's been really exciting. When we first began, I don't think any of us felt comfortable enough with 3D design. Sorry about the bell. When we first began, we didn't really feel comfortable enough with 3D design to sort of take it all on. We knew how the printer worked, but it was getting those designs that were going to work best with our printer that seemed to be the challenge. So we were able to get a hold of a young man that worked at the Didsbury Library, and he came and did some training. He did an afternoon training with us and went through all the different programs and how to go about doing some 3D designing. And that was really very wonderful. And it was great for some community members and students too, because they then got to actually design something and print it that day. So they got to use the printer and do some printing that they could take home that day. So there's a few questions, I would say, leads to more questions. So then we had to decide, well, who can use this printer and how do we know if they can use this printer? And after doing the training and playing with it myself, I realized that this printer and the whole idea of printing a 3D design isn't very simple. It is a bit tricky, and so we needed to have some controls in place. So for us, we wanted people who had attended a printer certification workshop before they could actually use the machine, so that they would figure out how to best use that machine, and we didn't have to constantly have staff there helping them. Is there any questions at this point?
It's good for now, thanks.
Okay, great. So, of course, I don't mind if people submit a design to me and want me to try to print it for them. They can do that. So if they've come up with a design and they want to do that. We haven't really seen that as a commercial situation just yet. I don't think I'd be adverse to that if the design worked well. That's the biggest, I find the biggest challenge with 3D printing is making sure you have a print that is going to be a successful print and making sure that it's going to give you the product that you want in the end. So we sat down with Machine and said, okay, how do we figure out how much to charge people? So we looked at the price of the filament and the use of the machine and things like that. And so for us, when we were talking to other libraries that had 3D printing, we came up with a charge of 10 cents per gram used. So that's one thing that you would have to also get a piece of equipment is we bought an electronic scale. And that was important for measuring how much product is actually used from the 3D printer. So how does this 3D printer work? Well, it's kind of in three parts. The first part is that you have to figure out what it is you want to print. So that's the 3D design part. And that you can find files that have actually computer-assisted generated files on websites like thingiverse.com, or you can create things in also Tinkercad, which is online, and you can also take things and upload them into Tinkercad, play with them a bit, change them up, and edit them. Other places we've been are NetFab, so it allows you to, again, edit files and do things with them. Makeprintable.com is another new one. They just went from a beta version to online use. You do have to sign up for these things. And so for us, we decided to do a library account, so that if we had some young users, for instance, for Thingiverse, that they could look and download the design, but that they would have to do that with staff help. And of course, the first thing we had to print was our bulldog logo for our school, and that's the picture you see on the presentation. And you'll notice that the reason I've got that other honeycomb looking thing there is that's what the inside of that bulldog head looks like. So when the printer's printing, it has to have support material, and you can choose the type of design inside the object that you want to print. Honeycomb probably is the one that we use the most, and you can put different sizes of honeycomb inside the object that you can do in the software that comes along with the printer. So the printer came along with two software programs, the first one being Slicer. And Slicer is a program that converts the digital model and cuts it into horizontal layers based on the settings you choose, and calculates how much material your printer will need to extrude. So when the plastic comes through the heated nozzle on the printer, it's called the extruder.
Hi, my name's Mike from Pinch. I just have a question regarding the bulldog head.
Sure. Go ahead.
There's no idea. What's the scale of the bulldog, and how much did that cost?
Okay, the scale of the bulldog, it's about 2 inches by about 2 inches.
Okay.
Okay. And that bulldog head would have cost about probably $6.40 to print.
Thank you.
You can choose that bulldog head is pretty dense because of the honeycomb pattern, so it used a lot more material. You could make that honeycomb pattern much larger, and it would be much cheaper because it wouldn't have taken so much material to use. So that's one of the things when you're looking at your designs you can actually do. So Slicer you put the design into Slicer, it breaks it down into horizontal layers and puts it into what we call G-code, into a G-code file. And that G-code file, then we have to load up into a program that tells the printer what to print. And in our case, it's called Repetier. And in Repetier, that G-code just tells the printer exactly horizontal level by horizontal level what to print. So you have to have a little bit of knowledge about those programs before you start using the printer, and that's why we decided to do the printer certification workshop and have people go through that before they use the equipment. So pictured here are some of the other things that we've done. Some of the things that we're looking forward to doing is we want to have more 3D design workshops, because we find that if people do the 3D design workshop first before they take the printer certification workshop, that they always have way better prints, have much better idea about what they can print and what is a good print. We do need to do some policy development under our sort of technology policy. We sort of covered some things, but 3D printing has brought up some more questions, and that's the kinds of questions about what can you print, for instance. And one of the things that has come to our attention is with students. For instance, we had a student who wanted to print a little mini crossbow, and because we felt that it was a weapon, we would not let them print that, because in our policy, even with our technology, anything that we deem as could be used for harm to others, we don't allow them to print. So that is something I think that needs to be even more clearly outlined for policy development, just to help staff with people when they have those kinds of questions. We're looking forward to doing more printer certification workshops, so having people come in and learn how to use the machine. Right now, I would say we have a handful of people that are very interested in it and so have been active in it. And our printer probably, I would say, is busy 3 to 4 days out of the week. So we usually have something printing. We would also like to try some different types of filament that like I was saying earlier with the wood fiber. I feel like that would be kind of interesting, and it creates interesting prints. We need to come up with better ways, I think, of showcasing our 3D designs and building our users. So we're not sure if that should be done online, in the library, just exactly how we'll do that. We will be going to our local fall fair here in the community and sort of showcasing some of those things, but it's something that you kind of want people to know about, and maybe just once a year isn't enough. So we need to think about how best to do that. Another thing is, as much as I'd like to say anybody could do this, which I think they can, it's a bit of a learning curve, it does take time, and it does take staff time. And so one of the things that we need or would like to do is to look at some exclusive 3D printer staff so that they can concentrate on those kinds of things. Because as a manager, I find that it takes more time than often I have to give. So we need to look for some granting and to look for exclusive 3D printing staff. At this point,
Can I ask a question?
Sure, you can.
Janice from Pincher Creek. And maybe you're coming to this. Have you had any thought that you might sort of need to extend your hours, like into the middle of the night, for the people that might like to do this all evening? Or
well, we do have later hours, and if somebody comes in and sets up a print, it doesn't mean they have to stay for the entire time of the print. So we can set up the print. Currently, though, because of the way our computers are configured to update, we can't have anything print past midnight. So because our computers upload their new programming and it shuts it off, so it disconnects it from the printer. So for us, anything that we know is going to take a long time to print, we have to start early, and so staff would probably manage that, not just people coming in. So that's one of the reasons Slicer is important, because when you put the design in, it shows you how much time that design is going to take to print. We've actually set our print up, and we've left it to print without the library being open. And it's been safe to do so, because once the print's done, it kind of disconnects. It shuts down the heat bed. Any other questions? Yeah, no problem. We don't have a 3D scanner yet at this point, and we're not sure about the future purchase of a 3D scanner. There are 2D to 3D converters available online for people. So I'm just not sure that at this point we're ready for that. So we're not really looking at buying a 3D scanner just yet. We don't really exercise control on copyright items, because a lot of the stuff that we've been getting is online, and so they are kind of free for everybody to use, unless you are printing something and you have to give credit to that printer. We have been doing that. And we've been having people check with staff what it is they're printing before they print it, for the reason that we were talking about for policy, making sure that it meets the standards that we've set out in policy. So there are some pitfalls, and we've had some successes. I'd like to talk about successes first. I feel like that's a great thing. We found the 3D printer has brought teens back into our library, and they're very interested in hanging out, seeing how it's working, seeing what they can do. And it's created a buzz among the teen population in our community, which I think is quite exciting. It's also created a buzz about the library and its services in our community, and we often have people stopping by to check out the 3D printer, and especially if it's working, they're very excited to see what's being printed. We will be having an open house in April for our community to come in, and we will be printing something for people to actually view and see what's going on then. And I think it's created some community pride and showed innovation for our community, because we are a small rural public library. Our village has only 200 and some people in it. We do service a surrounding community of 500, but we are small, and the fact that we have a 3D printer is remarkable, and people are very proud of that, and that's one of the things that they love to share when they talk about our community. We did win a innovation award through our local Marigold Libraries Making a Difference, and we won $500 to put towards our makerspace, and that's been exciting. I hope that at some point there will be more of a commercial printing service that we can do. The printer, or the laser printer that we currently have here in the library, I was speaking with the technician about that, and he said that several, if not the majority of the parts in that printer are 3D printed parts. So it does have lots of commercial applications, and so I hope that we can sort of grow that. I think the pitfalls, I would say, was the staff learning curve. It was pretty steep, I think, and still staff are learning. And the allocation of time it takes for this service, it's not, I would say it's a concern that you would definitely want to consider when you are looking at offering this service. The printer operation itself, although it's set up pretty easy once you are in Repetier, where it actually prints to the machine, it's that time of getting that 3D design and having it into Slicer that takes some time and some know-how. I still wouldn't say I'm a master of 3D design. I sort of make my way through the best I can. And knowing the printer controls, I think it helps too. When I was talking about like your fill size and the dimension of your print object and design, those are all important. And knowing if you need supports for certain things. We've had a few things that printed and there wasn't proper supports, and so it doesn't create a successful print. There's always questions, and I'm still learning a lot of it. I know Kaylee said that she would put a copy of my PowerPoint up on the RISE website, so on the calendar. So if you want to review anything that we were talking about, I went through it fairly extensively, but if you want to refer back, please don't hesitate to do that. I put up my email. I will do my best to help you if you're looking at proceeding, or give me a call. I have no problem helping people. It's exciting. It's a little bit daunting, but it's very exciting, and it's amazing what you can actually do with a 3D printer. Is there any questions at this time?
Hi, it's Janine from Jasper. You said you charge 10 cents a gram. Is that cost recovery simply for the filament, or is that like a slow cost recovery for the printer itself? Or are you even getting that much?
Yes, the 10 cents is for the cost of the filament plus a little bit extra just for the use on the printer, because there shouldn't be a lot of need to replace parts with the printer. There's not a lot there. But it does use a little bit of electricity. So we put a couple cents, I think, for that in there. So.
And
It's not just filament.
Okay. And is it easy to get the filament? Like, I've heard that's one of the issues with the 3D printers.
Not for us. It has not been a problem. Dealing with Machina, they get the filament for us, and it's been smooth, very easy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wasn't as impressed with Olds' MakerBot. The day that we were there, they had problems with it. And it's not I would say it's a small machine versus the Machina that we have, which is more a medium sized. And I just found that it was more glitchy. So I wasn't as impressed with the MakerBots when I looked as I was with the Machinas.
Mike Bark with Pincher Creek.
Yes.
You haven't yet told us the cost of the actual machine. How much did you buy it, or is it leased?
No, we bought it, and I'll go back to my slide. I think I put it on a slide. The total cost for us was $4,394, but that included the printer, the heat bed, the filament spool, delivery, software installation, setup and calibration, a 2-hour training session, and 1-year care and maintenance package, plus 10 spools of filaments of assorted colors. So it's a healthy investment, but I felt for the money it was the best deal, because I think I was looking at MakerBots were about, of similar size, were about $2,100, but that was just the base printer itself, nothing else.
And
sorry, I was going to say, you can definitely get a 3D printer at a much more reduced cost, but I think you have to look at what are you using this machine for, and you want it to be a reliable service, because if every time somebody comes to use it, it's down and not working, that creates such frustration. And so that to me was a really important thing, was the sustainability of that service and making sure that we could give good service.
did you have to buy any additional software over and above the 4300?
No, we have not had to buy any additional software. We could upgrade our current free subscription to one of the 3D design subscription services, but we've never had to. The free one has done everything we really needed to do at this point. I think if you were going to get into commercial, Tinkercad is what I'm thinking about. Sorry, I was just trying to think of it. Tinkercad's where you can go in and actually develop your 3D design, and I think there is a cost for that subscription if you want to have all the features. And if you are going to be doing commercial printing, I would think that you may want to look at that. I don't think it's really terrible, though. It's not a big cost. It's just for us, for what we've been doing at this point, the free one is working fine.
And does the software run on both Windows and Apple machines?
I believe that it does, but on our machine it is window based. So you would have to talk to Machina about the Apple. I'm not sure about it, but ours that we have is window based.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi, it's Lara in Okotoks. How much dedicated library space did you have to give up or set aside for your printer to house it?
Well, actually not that much. Because we decided to put it be across from our circulation desk, and I think I have a picture. Let me just go back here. That's our station right there. That's how much dedicated space there is. So it maybe takes up 4 feet across, and it's about 2 feet from the mall. We do have it on the printer itself on a cart, so that if we need to roll it out or do anything, that we can move it, because they don't suggest rolling it around. Because once you calibrate that printer, any moving around is going to uncalibrate it. So once it's calibrated, you want to pretty much have it where it is. We have it on locking roller wheels, but we also needed it to be able to get to it to access in behind. So we did do that. The computer that's next to it, we went with a little smaller tower. You'll notice there it's just small. Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of room at all, amazingly. And like I said, it's not noisy, which I thought it might be noisy and a little bit of a smell. We don't get that at all. You get, when it's working, you get maybe a little bit of like a little soft purr kind of, that when it's going back and forth a bit, but that's about it. I was really surprised at how unevasive it was. Whereas when I talked to Olds, they said that theirs gets to be quite loud sometimes. So that was the MakerBot. And so 3D printing technology is changing all the time. So you have to do your homework and look into the different machines and talk to people about that are using them. That's what I found was the best tool, was actually talking to the people who are using them, finding out what they worked, what didn't work. And that's why we decided to go with the mid-size machine. We felt that it could handle a variety of different sizes of prints, that it was going to be durable and pretty easy to use once it was set up. Any other questions? I can take this off presentation mode so I can see you all better. If there's no other questions, I guess we're done. And like I said, if you think of something that you want to talk to me about or get a hold of me, please feel free to give me a call. I don't mind to help anybody. I certainly appreciated the library staff that was willing to help me when I was deciding what to do, and I think made a big difference in what I decided to do, because when we first looked at purchasing our 3D printer, it was all about the price, because for us our budget wasn't that big. But as I started to learn more about 3D printing and some of the things that you have to deal with, it wasn't just the price. It became more than that was important. So, okay, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope I was able to help you. And did anybody have any questions about how a 3D printer works? Have you all seen a 3D printer work? Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay. It's so interesting because when we first got this printer, the school superintendent was in the building, and I said to him, "You should come and see our 3D printer." And he thought it was like a printer hooked to a computer. He didn't realize that it was actually building an object. So he couldn't understand why I was wanting him to come look at a printer. He thought, whoops, like why is that such a big deal? But when he came and actually saw it working and seeing what it could do, he was really excited, because I don't think he'd ever seen a 3D printer.
That's depressing for a teacher.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. You know, like I said, I just don't think he understood what the whole 3D printing was. So.
Where's he been?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, if he's a teacher, where's he been?
well, he's a superintendent, so I wouldn't necessarily say he's been in the classroom for the last little while. So probably a teacher in a classroom would know more. I think a heated bed is also a good part of, if you're looking at a printer, make sure it has a heated bed. I think you'll have more success with that. That was something else I meant to say. Okay, well, I won't take up any more of your Monday. Thank you for joining me. And again, if you have any questions, let me know.